Hello and welcome back to the Scoop with Coop. I'm of course Coop, and in today's video, we are going to be grading each team's NFL draft. And I will say, I know this is a little bit late when it comes to grading this, but I just wanted to see how the rest of not only the draft, but also what are some of the names going into it post draft, like say for example, like Diego Pavia. Who are some of the undrafted guys, and how could that end up turning out? Plus, the NBA has also been pretty interesting so far, but we're here, we're getting ready to do this. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. And the first team up, I'm just going to go by order of the city that, where each team plays. And starting with the Arizona Cardinals, I think that I'm going to give this a C plus. Um, and just starting with the first pick, right? Jeremiah Love, running back from Notre Dame. I do love, no pun intended, Jeremiah as a prospect. I think he's a phenomenal running back talent, and I can understand the decision to pick him simply because at number 3, right, there's no great quarterback talent available, and everyone else is a step below in terms of being at their position, the talent that they have. So I don't mind taking Jeremiah Love. I also do love following that up, taking Chase Bisontis, a guard. So you already have your tackles figured out. You have Paris Johnson on the left, and you have some configuration on the right side. Then you beef up the interior, and you go get a guard. Which, let's face it, if you're gonna draft a running back, you need to make sure your line is good, and that's exactly what they're doing. And then following up with the next pick, they take Carson Beck, and I don't love this pick simply because if you're taking a quarterback in round 3, obviously he's not a blue chip premier prospect. And I would have preferred, if you're going to take a quarterback, take someone who has higher potential. So I mean, I'm not saying go take like Diego Pavia or something. I'm not saying that. But I wouldn't have minded if they took either Drew Aller. I wouldn't have minded if they took Garrett Nussmeier, which then again those guys ended up falling. So it's clear around the league that, you know, Carson Beck was a better prospect. And when you take a quarterback in round 3, there's two outcomes that you're looking for. One, he works out, so he's either going to be a starter or he's going to be a high tier backup, which in the case of Beck, I think he will be a good backup. Um, or it just goes terribly and you're picking high, which for the Cardinals, I think either way that works out for you. You either get someone who next year you can delude yourself into thinking works, and you get a situation very similar to Tyler Shuck, or he's terrible, and you can pick early in the draft, and you can take Dante Moore, Arch Manning, and a ton of other players in next year's very loaded quarterback class, which I know we say next year's draft is the best, but this one legitimately has great talent available in terms of the quarterback position. So I don't mind going out and doing that, where only concern with Beck, arm strength isn't fantastic. You do worry about age and if he's already reached his potential, but I don't mind this pick simply because if it works out, it works out, and if it doesn't, next year you can take another quarterback. Just looking for the rest of the draft, I'm not like the deepest into knowing every single one of these players, but from how it looks, at least according to a couple of sites, they got good depth in rotational players, which that's exactly what you want to see. Next up, the Falcons. They didn't have a first round pick because they traded it last year to go up and get James Pierce Jr., and that pick was used interestingly, which I will talk about later when we get to the Rams. But I really like this draft for the Falcons because you have to assume you have your quarterback in Michael Penix, and if not, you brought in Tua, which, yay, that works out well for you, I guess. But you take Avion Terrell, brother of one of your best players on the team in AJ Terrell. Great corner, and you can never have too many secondary players because if there's one thing that every football team wants, it is to be complementary. And if your pass rush is good, it helps out your secondary. If your secondary is good, that helps out your pass rush. So if you can build a good defense, that can help out your quarterback by not putting as much pressure on him, especially for a quarterback in the case of Michael Penix, where he hasn't played a whole lot over his time being in the NFL. And I mean, sure, he's an older quarterback, but if you can get him more reps being on a more competent team, that'll work out very, very well for you, as well as when you add in Kevin Stefanski, who could help him out on the offensive end. I absolutely love it. And then I also love getting another weapon in the case of Zachariah Branch. good quarterback, good receiver, or sorry, good receiver from Georgia, right? And I think number one, if you can take someone from in-state and it's not much of a reach, I'm never going to complain about that. Also, this team outside of Drake London hasn't had a phenomenal number two receiver. They've had shades of others where it's like you have Darnell Mooney being competent for a little bit, but I do think that if you can get a solid number three, which I think Zachariah Branch could definitely be, that could work out very, very well for you going forward. And so I'd say for the Falcons, I'd give them, just based off of the top end talent that they got, I would say a high B, so like a B to a B plus, just because you maximize your picks, even though you traded one of them away for a player in the case of James Pierce, who, I'm not going to speak on the just disgusting things that he did, but, or allegedly did, because I mean, you know, if he did do them, truly morally reprehensible and terrible. But I don't want to speak on that much further. Up next, Baltimore Ravens, right? This team in a new era where you got rid of John Harbaugh, brought in, oh my goodness, what's his name? He's the DC from LA. Whatever. So you got a great Jesse Minter, that's what it is. So for Baltimore, new era, you're leaning a lot more defensively, and you can kind of tell with the first two picks where your first player taken is a interior offensive lineman. I absolutely love that because if you've watched the Ravens play, you're going to notice one man above everyone else simply because he's just so terrible in Daniel Falele, and you cannot run it back with him. So you took Vega Ione, the interior lineman from Penn State. Not a surprising pick, but still doesn't mean that it's not a great pick. Absolutely love it. Best interior offensive lineman in this draft. You pair that with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, works out perfectly. You need to replace some of the talent on your offensive line. They do that. And then beefing up the trenches, you get Zion Young, which, let's face it, you can never have too many edge rushers. Don't mind it. And then also, in the next couple rounds, you see a ton of offensive skill position players. You see two wide receivers, and then you see a tight end. So I don't mind this draft from the Ravens at all because not only are you helping out Lamar Jackson's life in every way possible, you're also playing complementary in terms of when you run the ball. Not many positions are as crucial as guards from going to the first level, getting up to the second level. If you want to run any slam or punch or any type of those type of run schemes, that's all guard reliant. So if you can build up on the talent that you already have and, let's face it, get better at a position that helps out your football team, you do it 100%. You pair that with a couple of good receivers like Jacoby Lane. I thought he could be a late first, early second round pick player. You get him in round 3, love it for you. And then Elijah Surratt, someone who isn't going to be the focal point probably, but at the very least he plays winning football and that he can help your team win. And what more important do you need from that? So I absolutely love this draft from this Ravens team. They had a ton of picks, and I think they utilized it pretty well. I'd give them A minus. I think they absolutely maximized what they had to do, and I love it for them. Next up, the Buffalo Bills, a team that changed direction, but not really, because sure you got a new coach, but it was your offensive coordinator. So I mean, I already posted a video about that earlier on during the offseason, but I like this draft where you get a great late round pick in Toriano Pride Jr. from Missouri. I think he's a great prospect. I think he would have been available, or I think that if he went in round 4, that wouldn't have been a bad pick, and you got him in round 7. So obviously there was something that the rest of the league saw that I didn't, but I do like him as a player, and I think that if you can put him on a team that, defensively at points is a little troublesome, you can never have too many secondary players, and then going upper in the draft where it's your more premium positions, you take a secondary player in Davidson Igbuson and then TJ Parker, although not in that order, but you have 2 second round picks. You take an edge rusher, which this team only has a couple of good edge rushing players. Ed Oliver isn't what he once was. You have Greg Rousseau, which he's a great player. I think if you can pair that being TJ Parker with Rousseau, fantastic, and that'll free up free up some space for Ed Oliver to start cooking again. This Buffalo secondary is a little bit older, so if you can bring in younger players, that absolutely works. And then bringing in Jude Bowery in the 4th round, I thought he was a 2nd to 3rd round talent. Got him in the 4th. Can't complain there. Skylar Bell, good receiver out of UConn, and UConn, they're up on the rise. I absolutely love this draft for Buffalo, so I'm going to say B plus, A minus for them. I think it works out very, very well. Next up, Carolina Panthers. I like this draft now that you sort of are more comfortable knowing that Bryce Young is your guy, and that's who you're going to be really focusing on because the last couple years that hasn't been the case that much. So in the first round, you take Monroe Feeling, right? This also is with I believe Ikem Ekwonu is out for the like all of next year because he got injured in that Rams game, but you're a team that made the playoffs and you're beefing up the trenches. I think just as a philosophy, perfect, right? You have Teteroa McMillan. He's been, he was a phenomenal player. Hopefully, this is where Xavier Legette comes into play and he actually starts being a productive player. But if that isn't the case, you take Chris Brazzell, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. I love this class. You took all premium positions and they were all good players. I don't think you had any major reaches. And the worst player in this class, or the worst pick here in terms of talent, is a seventh rounder. So I mean, you can't complain about that. I'd say I'd give this an A maybe or an A plus for the Panthers. I think that this was a fantastic draft to just give yourself more talent. Next up, Chicago Bears. You see a lot of stuff online, or at least it could just be me because I'm in the area or in the Midwest. So Chicago, Indy, all of those teams are really talked about. A lot of people don't like this Bears class. I absolutely love it. Dylan Thieneman, right? Love him. Absolutely wanted the Eagles to go and pick him up. Unfortunately, he wasn't available in the second, where whatever. But I do love Dylan Thieneman as a prospect. Physical, hard hitting, very old school, traditional safety. Also great on the ball, great instincts, able to cut quickly, just fantastic. Second round, this pick, a lot of people don't like it. I don't mind it so much. In Logan Jones, the center from Iowa. Listen, Iowa, breeding ground for great offensive line talent. Their center play wasn't great, especially I believe their center, who they drafted like a year ago or something, like retired. Absolutely love the pick because even if he's not the best player, just taking a position of need at that point where when you're trying to compete and you have Caleb Williams, so he's going to be able to move around in the pocket, do all of his nifty stuff. Just taking a lineman there whenever you already have a good overall line, don't mind it one bit. Then you take Sam Roosh, tight end from Stanford. He's more of a blocking, traditional, old school tight end, which if they're going to go into 13 personnel, don't mind it one bit. It seems to be that they're going to really like having three tight ends, which that gives them versatility. And Roosh is kind of an extension of the offensive line in a way because he is a fantastic pass blocker, and I like this pick. I like this draft not as much as the others so far, so I'd say maybe a C plus or a B minus. I don't think it's terrible, but I think that there was some room for improvement here. Next up, Cincinnati. They don't have a first round pick because they traded that for Dexter Lawrence, which if you take that into consideration, don't mind it at all. Dexter Lawrence, great interior pass rusher, great interior player. And for a defense who's terrible, you gotta improve upon that. They used their first pick to take a edge rusher out of A&M, Texas A&M. I think that with this Bengals team, when your defense is just so terrible, you didn't get the progress, or at least you didn't get the start you wanted from Shamar Stewart. So if you can take an edge rusher to compete with him, or to also replace Trey Hendrickson, don't mind it. I don't mind this pick here. You then followed up and take a corner out of Washington. Don't mind it. You take a center, right? Can't hurt to help out Joe Burrow. Take another interior offensive lineman, help out Joe Burrow. I think that this is a good draft. I think maybe a B plus, because you're getting good players and their players' positions of need, and they help you complementary wise with filling out the rest of your team and looking to start competing once again. For the Browns, I was right with them beefing up the trenches. However, I do think this was a phenomenal class. Absolutely love the Spencer Fano pick. If you don't have anything really going for you, can't hurt to take an offensive lineman as Fano. He's just a phenomenal football player. Don't mind it one bit for this Browns team. You then go and you take two wide receivers in the case of Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. Boston could have been a late first round pick. You get him early in the second, don't mind it. That Concepcion, phenomenal player, great receiver. He kind of fell a little bit because of Mekhi Lemon falling. But I do think you get two receivers to help out Shedeur. Then you get a pass blocker to help out Shedeur. You then go and you take another pass blocker in the third, an interior lineman in the fifth, and then you go and sort of start to fill out the rest of your team in the rest of the fifth and the seventh. I do love this class. The only thing that's a little bit interesting here is not taking a running back as much. I guess they really do believe in Dylan Sampson as the guy, which, you know what? Maybe it works out. Another interesting thing here is Cleveland has the most interesting quarterback room because they decided to select Kalen Green in the sixth, which I think Kalen Green has great potential and can be used in a ton of fun and nifty packages. But this is the most interesting quarterback room in the NFL where you have Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Kalen Green. Who is the veteran in that locker room? Yikes. Don't mind this draft for Cleveland. I'd say a A. I think that it was a very good class for them. I think they got talent where they needed it, and can't be mad at that. I don't like that I'm going to have to say something nice about the Cowboys. I really don't. But first round pick, Caleb Downs. That's an A plus, man. He is a phenomenal football player. Sure, you do worry about the injuries and what scouts we're talking about, but this is a top three just overall football player, and you got him at 11. So who cares about injuries? Realistically, you then go and you reach a little bit on Malachi Lawrence, the edge from UCF. I don't mind it. This pass rush is terrible. This defense just as a whole was terrible. So if you can get two first round talent players, don't mind it one bit. Then you're going to take a Michigan edge rusher, right? Good value pick. Go and you take a tackle, right? Keep Dak Prescott upright. Take a corner and an edge. So, I mean, this draft was really all about defense. I do love LT Overton. I thought he could have been a third round pick. Got him in the fourth. I do love this draft for Dallas, unfortunately. I do think that for what they needed, they addressed it about as well as you can get. I mean, I think that this absolutely helps out Brian Schottenheimer. I think that just with the defense being so terrible, and you take in the top 100, you take three defensive players, you're going to get an influx of talent and absolutely love it. I mean, I think this is a great class and a great draft for them. Unfortunately, again, for Denver, right? They didn't have many picks available for their disposal. They were the last team to make their first pick, but I think they used their picks pretty well. You drafted a defensive tackle, you drafted a running back, and you drafted a tackle. Don't mind it. I mean, you beef up the trenches and you get a running back, which, I mean, that's going to, let's face it, a running back, if you can get a pretty good one in the fourth, good value where you can get it. I do think that this is a lot more of a rotational draft instead of the overall star power available for them. So for that, I'd give them a B minus because you didn't get a phenomenal player. You just got a bunch of good role players who are going to be there for 6 or 7 years, then leave in free agency when some team gives them a little bit more money. But I do like that draft class. Speaking of draft classes, I like the Lions. They needed offensive line, and they took Blake Miller. At least for me, I want my linemen to be wearing like jeans during the draft. Like, I want my lineman to not focus on fashion. I don't want him to do anything other than just get ready to go play football. And Blake Miller, phenomenal football player. I believe he only allowed one sack in 4 years. Didn't miss a game at Clemson. Always available, always gritty, always tough. Love it. I mean, I think that if you can bring that type of mentality with Dan Campbell, perfect match and perfect mesh. Second round pick, you take a edge rusher out of Michigan. Good player in Derek Moore. Great rotational edge rusher at worst. And could end up being a very good player at his best. He is a phenomenal player. Jimmy Rolder, another Michigan Wolverine, linebacker from Michigan. Let's face it, Lions need linebackers because outside of Jack Campbell, I think is who it is, the linebacker from, I think, who was at Iowa, whatever. I think that if you can get some more complementary talent with that, you can help out your linebacking group, which, let's face it, linebackers, I mean, they cover all three parts of the field. Could be absolutely monumental there. And speaking of covering all three parts of the field, you have Keith Abney, uh, cornerback from Arizona State. Good talent, good depth player. I think this was a very, you have one true heavy hitting player in Blake Miller. And I think that he could be absolutely monumental with it. And then in the later rounds, you really fill out the rest of the team. I'd give it a B. I think you got great talent, maybe a B plus. I think you got good talent in this. So I can't hate on that draft at all. Next, Green Bay. This one they didn't have the first round pick because the Micah Parsons trade. I like this. I mean, you get Chris McClellan, defensive tackle out of Mizzou. He was a good player for you. Mean, very physical player. Love that for Green Bay. Get a corner in the second round. Great. Get an edge rusher. I mean, you really help out your defense because, in the playoffs, your defense kind of got cooked towards the end of that game. I think that that's how you build. I mean, I think offensively the Packers are fine, but when you pair a defensive tackle and a good rotational edge rusher with Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary. Oh, wait, no, Rashawn Gary isn't on the team anymore. Whoops. But if you pair those two with Micah, that could be a very spooky sight. You then go and you take more rotational players. I mean, you drafted a kicker in the 6th round, which, whatever, I'm not going to act like I'm great with kicker film. You either make it or you don't. I'd say a B for the Packers. Good draft. For the Texans, I like this class. I mean, I think that, in the first round, you took an interior lineman from Georgia. They needed offensive line help where they can get it. So, can't bash on it one bit. Take a defensive tackle, which, and McDonald, he's a great defensive tackle. My big thing is the rich just get richer. This already fantastic Texans defense just gets even better. So that's lovely for the rest of the NFL. You take a tight end in Marlon Klein, which he was okay. I mean, I didn't feel like he was a phenomenal player. You then go and you take a guard in the 4th. So, I mean, you're really beefing up the offensive line, which that's one of your biggest weaknesses. I would have liked to have seen you take a quarterback here, even if it was like Taylon Green or Garrett Nussmeier. I would have liked to have seen you take a quarterback just to put more pressure on CJ Stroud because the way he finished off that year was just truly terrible. And staying in the AFC South, you have the Indianapolis Colts, and I like this class for the Colts. You used your top 4 picks very well, I think. You fill out the rest of your defense, which is where your problem was. You beef up the offensive line. Hopefully Daniel Jones comes back and is good. If he is, you surround him with a better defense. They don't have a first-round pick because they went and traded for Sauce Gardner, which, I don't think Sauce Gardner was as good as the trade package that they sent out for him. But I do think that this is a good class when you factor in all of the talent that they brought in. This is a massive improvement for a defense where they just fell apart towards the second half of the year when talking about Indy. I mean, I like this class. You sharpen up the edges of this team, and you hope next year Daniel Jones returns back to that level. And if he does, you're good to go. Sticking again in the AFC South, yeah, the Jaguars. I like this draft. You take just a couple of rotational players in the 2nd and 3rd, players who I don't think are going to end up being stupendous, but I think could end up being like 6 to 7 year players who just stay with the team for a while. You then go and you take a pretty decent heavy hitter in Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard from Oregon, which Trevor Lawrence, he struggled to staying upright. And I do think that if you can make sure to keep his development going on the right track, the sky's the limit for this team. I mean, you made the playoffs and you were pretty close to beating Buffalo if your defense held strong and if you didn't let Trevor Lawrence get killed. So you bring in a couple of guys who can help out with that. You bring in some late round wide receivers, seeing if one of them sticks. I do like this draft of them. I'd give them a C plus. I mean, I don't think it was a phenomenal draft. I think it was simply okay. So I mean, I'm indifferent about it. For the Kansas City Chiefs, interesting one. So you trade up and you go. I think you traded up a little bit to go take Mansour Delane, cornerback from LSU. I like it. I mean, you addressed a couple of your big weaknesses in free agency, mainly the running back position. You addressed that in free agency. You traded away a couple of your corners, or you traded away one of your corners being He was the guy from Washington. Trent McDuffie. You traded away McDuffie. You got a first round pick, which you used to take Peter Woods, a good defensive tackle, a phenomenal defensive tackle. I loved him coming out of the draft. So you address the corner position, even though you lost a couple of them. You're going to ask a couple of your guys to step up. You do take another corner later on. So hopefully if both of your corners step up or at least one of them plays at a good level, you should be good. And then you just fill out the rest of your roster where you bring in Cyrus Allen, receiver, Emmett Johnson, running back, to where, just being complimentary guys. And then you bring in Garrett Nussmeier to be a stable backup. I thought he could be a 4th or 5th round pick. You get him in the late 7th. Don't mind it. I don't mind that pick at all. I'd say if I'm giving him a grade, a B. I think it was a good draft. Not a heavy hitting home run because I think the home run pieces are already there for you. So I don't see the need to go all out with going crazy. Sticking in the AFC West, you have the Vegas Raiders. I like this draft for Vegas. You have the number 1 pick. I mean, who else are you taking? Randall Mendoza, it has been the most clear and obvious pick of this entire draft. I like it, especially whenever you bring in Kirk Cousins in free agency to help mentor him. I like Mendoza. I think that he could be very similar to a, coincidentally, Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff aspect, or similar adjacent player. Timing is good. I do think that he might struggle a little bit in the NFL with timing because it seems like during the college football playoffs he was off target, or not off target. He was a little bit slow making some decisions that led to him taking some sacks he shouldn't have. But I do think that you get your quarterback of the future to build around. You pair him with a good coach in Clint Kubiak. Don't mind it one bit. You're then going to take a couple of defensive talents to help you out and trade in Stukes and Kieran Crawford. Don't mind it. You get good rotational players, and then this couple sequence here, this is just fantastic GM work here. Trey Zune, center from Texas A&M. He's a great player. I loved him coming out. He was a great player, and I could very well see him being absolutely stable for this team. Because I know you already signed a center, but I do think he has the ability to move to guard if push comes to shove. Do love it. And then you take Jermon McCoy in the 4th, which he was a first-round talent. Just some injury concerns, which those are the types of swings you have to make if you're a team on the come up and on the rise. Love the draft for Vegas. I'm going to give him an A. I think you got your quarterback of the future. You improved on your weaknesses, and you built out the rest of your team. Sticking again in the AFC West, you have the LA Chargers. I mean, I think that in the first round, you take Akeem Mesidor, good player. I don't mind it in the first. You take Jake Slaughter, any type of pass protector, I'm completely cool with. Brendan Thompson, wide receiver, Mississippi State. I can't speak on Thompson. I haven't watched a ton of his game. Travis Burke, a tackle from Memphis. You need any offensive line help, and you drafted 2 interior offensive linemen, a center, and a tackle. So you're making sure Justin Herbert's upright and protected going into next year, because you cannot have another case of Herbert just being absolutely battered like he was for all of last year. So for the Chargers, I'd give him a B. It was a perfectly adequate draft. No home run hits, but also not many just swing and a misses. And then sticking in LA, you have the LA Rams. I love their draft. And I know that this is a bit of a hot take or whatever, because they only have 5 picks. And this is a team that got better throughout the course of the draft, or at least before the draft, because you went and you traded for Trent McDuffie, you signed the other Chiefs corner, you address your biggest weaknesses, you look ready to contend, and because of the trade you made last year, you have a top 15 pick, you have the number 13 pick, courtesy of the Falcons, and, I said with that pick, they did something a little controversial. They took a quarterback, and they took Ty Simpson from Alabama. I do like this pick. And I know that's a bit shocking because Matt Stafford, it was thought he was going to retire last year. And I think that you cannot get into one of those situations where you're just like, who are we going to take? Kyler Murray, you're going to be the guy. Like, I can't, I don't think that is at all logical to have let that happen where you just are stuck without a quarterback with the team that is contending. And I think that Simpson, he won't play right away. He'll probably be on the bench for a year, maybe two at most. And a lot of times that seems to work out. Simpson, I mean, I think that he played pretty well in college. He wasn't fantastic, but I do think he was the second best quarterback available. I do like the idea and the concept of McVay developing a quarterback, as he's done that twice now. Actually, he's done it three times. If you consider Baker Mayfield, where he put him back on track for his career. So I think that if you get Ty Simpson, someone who you know is fine with sitting on the bench, I don't want to phrase it like that, but you know, someone who is willing to be an understudy, isn't going to demand playing time right away, and is going to end up being a very solid quarterback. And he reminds me a lot of, coincidentally, Jared Goff. But I do like this pick, and it allows you to not have a ugly duckling phase where you're going to just be fantastic both ways through both eras of Stafford and then transitioning over to Simpson. Hopefully he can develop right, but if there's anyone I would trust to develop a young quarterback, it would be Sean McVay. Then you take Max Clare, tight end from Ohio State. Good player. Position of need. You don't have fantastic tight end play. Then you go and you take Keegan Trost, tackle out of Mizzou. Good player. Don't mind it at all. CJ Daniels, wide receiver Miami. I like this pick. Could be a very good number 3 for the Rams, because I think he stepped up in the playoffs a little bit for Miami. I also think that it's going to be very easy to get space whenever you have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. You're going to be able to get favorable matchups, and you're going to be open a lot of the times, especially with Stafford throwing you the ball. Love this draft, the Rams. I'm going to give it an A. I know I'm in the minority for that, but I don't care. I have all the faith in the world in this. Up next, the Miami Dolphins. They have every pick under the sun. And, you know, when you think about teams who have the worst position groups, right? They have the worst receiving group. They have the worst pass blocking group. Outside of Chop Robinson, do they have the worst pass rushing group? Do they have the worst linebacking group? Do they have the worst secondary group? I mean, this Dolphins team is terrible. Just flat out, they suck. And they are going to be terrible. But I think with that in mind, I think they handled this very well. You get Caden Proctor. Only concern about him is the arm length, and especially after last year where you saw Will Campbell kind of get exposed for having short arms. A little concerning. But I do think Caden Proctor is just a lot stronger and better than Will Campbell was, simply better at handling more contact and handling physicality better and still being anchored. Love this pick, especially because you just went out and you paid for a quarterback. What better way to protect him than bringing in a franchise tackle? Chris Johnson, cornerback out of San Diego State. Good player, right? You know, like I said, position of need is everything pretty much. You're going to take one of the best corners on the board, if not the best corner on the board. Don't mind it at all. Second round, and yeah, they had 2 first-round picks. Second round, you're going to take Jacob Rodriguez, someone who I thought was in the Heisman talks, right? Phenomenal linebacker, all over the place. Physical, hard-hitting. You can use him in some fun packages offensively. Defensively, I mean, he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal with the peanut punch. He's great at forcing fumbles. Big play generator. Big play neutralizer for the offense. And big play generator for the defense. Just phenomenal player. Love that for him. I think he's going to be able to thrive, especially with their new coach. Take a receiver, Caleb Douglas, sticking with Texas Tech. Don't love that pick, but also you need talent. So I can't hate on it. Will Merrick, I mean, let's face it, Greg Dulcich was your tight end going forward. Don't mind it, just taking a tight end and seeing what sticks. Chris Bell, wide receiver, Louisville. Thought it was a good pick in terms of the placement. You take a good receiver. Can't hurt. Because let's face it, they need everything under the sun. I know I've mentioned that enough. I'm sorry, Dolphins fans, but it's true. You then just take a ton of rotational players for the rest of the class. Don't mind it. They had needs everywhere, and they just used a shotgun approach at just taking as many picks as possible and hoping that they're better than the players they already had, which, I mean, it's probably true. As mean as it sounds. Yeah. Don't mind this draft for Miami. I'm going to give it a A. I think that you address your big problems. Hopefully it works out, and at the very least, you have roughly like 10 players on your team for the next 4 years, so you won't have to worry about constantly having a ton of roster turnover. So I like their draft for them. And speaking of a draft where first picks were kind of interesting, The Minnesota Vikings, I do not love the pick of Caleb Banks. I think there were a lot of other concerns here. I would have preferred you go with running back. You needed that desperately. I would have preferred you go and take an edge rusher. Would have preferred you go and, I mean, I guess you already had Kyler Murray, so you don't need a quarterback. Would have preferred you go and get secondary help. Would have preferred you go and get a safety. Ton of other positions of needs, I think. And Caleb Banks isn't a great player, at least. I don't think he's first round worthy. Again, they must see something I don't, because I'm not a big fan of that pick. You do end up taking a couple of very solid next couple of picks. Caleb Golday, linebacker Cincy, linebacker's position of need. Van Ginkel's more of a pseudo edge rusher than he is a traditional linebacker. Don't mind it. Dominique Orange, don't mind him at all. Take the beefy run stuffer. Don't mind it. Caleb Tiernan, tackle, right? You needed some tackle help last year. You got some now. Jacoby Thomas would have preferred they address safety earlier than the third round, but that's what they decided to do. And then the rest are just kind of rotational players where you take a running back in the sixth, which maybe you can work out. A lot of times you see running backs going later in the draft and end up working out well. I'd give this one of the worst grades. I'd say maybe a C minus. I don't love it just when you have as crucial of a pick as you have where it is monumental and you just have one of the worst first round picks. I don't like it very much. Don't love it at all. Not great. For the Patriots, for the Vikings, yeah, I already said C minus. Next up, the Patriots, right? First round pick, they take Caleb Lomu. Love him as a prospect. I thought he was phenomenal. Offensive line was your big weakness in the Super Bowl where you just got bullied and exposed, right? I already said what I said about offensive linemen, right? If you have any weakness, build up the trenches. Love it from them. Great player. You got him at 28, great value pick. You're then going to take an edge rusher out of Illinois and Gabe Jacobs. Don't mind it, right? You needed some more help there, and I love beefing up the trenches. And this is the only thing that we've talked about with this Patriots offseason, especially regarding their coach, right? How he just loves having a ton of edge and hand on the line of scrimmage type of players, right? Am I missing anything? I don't think so. But I do like this draft class. I mean, you take a ton of rotational players outside of that. You go and get a tight end, Eli Raridon from Notre Dame, Caden Prunty, cornerback from Wake Forest. You take just overall rotational players. The best value pickup, I think, is Jam Miller. I think he could have a ton of potential. I liked what I saw from him at Alabama. I think this was a great draft for New England. I'm going to give it an A. I mean, I think that you have one of the best value picks in the first round. You then followed up and you take a ton of great depth players, and you were in the Super Bowl last year, so clearly you are good enough to contend, and you fix your pick weaknesses. I might even talk about giving it an A, maybe. You know what? I'll just keep it at an A. But I do love this draft for New England. I think that they're in a great place right now, other than, Mike Vrabel doing some shenanigans. But we won't talk about that. Up next, New Orleans Saints, right? You have the breakout of Tyler Shuck. You do need offensive talent, and you go and you address Jordan Tyson, which, only issue with Jordan Tyson, injuries. And, that is a very broad and generic concern, because otherwise he would have been a top 5 pick easily if he didn't have those concerns. Don't mind it at all. Like the pick, like the player. Very happy during the draft. You could tell he was crying, and you could tell that he had if you've seen the clip of him walking out during the when his name got called, you know what I'm referencing. I don't want to say fully what happens, but a little gross. But let's just say he was very happy to be a New Orleans Saint. And then followed up, and you just take a ton of physical players. Love that. Christian Miller, tackle Georgia. Georgia just breeds defensive linemen. Then take Oscar Delp, very physical player. Love that, especially if you're trying to create any separation when it comes to running the ball. Delp's a great pass blocker and run blocker. Love that. And then you just take a ton of a couple of receivers. You do take Lorenzo Styles, which I think is a great late round get for you. I mean, I think they addressed this draft as about as good as you can get. I mean, the only concern is just whether or not Jordan Tyson stays healthy. If he stays healthy, this is an A-plus draft because you got great talent, you got great depth, and you balanced both things perfectly. I like this draft, but I'm going to say an A because you don't know whether or not that the health is going to maintain. New York Giants, right? I do think that it's kind of funny when you look at your team needs who you ended up getting. I mean, you needed to get a. Oh, I had one of those feelings like where you need to sneeze. Guess we didn't. You needed to get a defensive tackle. You didn't end up getting one. I mean, you traded away Dexter Lawrence to go get the 10th pick, and with that pick, you go and get Maui Goa, tackle out of Miami. He's a great player. Very physical player. I love the idea of beefing up the trenches, especially whenever you have Jackson Dart, who loves to do his evasive little maneuvers. You then take Arvell Reese, who you need a defensive commander, and you got that. He is a little bit more of a off-ball linebacker of sorts, or at least that's how I think they're going to deploy him, simply because they have the talented edge rusher. But even if you don't want to use him that way, he's still a good pass rusher, very versatile on the defensive end. Love that pick for them. And then get Colton Hood. He's a good corner out of Tennessee. You really address the defensive concerns. Love it. And then you take a Malachi Fields, a receiver. Great defensive or great receiver. I think you attacked the first 100 picks about as good as you can get. I love this draft for you, unfortunately. I'm going to say an A for you, as much as I don't want to say that. I think you address this draft about as good as you can get. Sticking in New Jersey, right? Jets and Giants don't play in New York. They play in New Jersey. Biggest lie ever told in football. But sticking in that area, they have the number 2 pick, and they take David Bailey. Now, David Bailey, good player. I just don't like drafting for fit when you're picking number 2 because clearly the scheme wasn't working well. And I think Bailey's a good player, but I would have just preferred you either take Ruben Bain even. I would have preferred you take a different edge rusher, being honest. I would have preferred you take Arvell Reese even, just to have some more versatility there. Don't love the pick of Bailey. I think Bailey's a good player, good scheme fit. I just don't think you draft for scheme at number 2 overall because clearly you suck and the scheme wasn't that good. This team also didn't have an interception for the first time ever. I mean, the last time that a team didn't have any interceptions, a literal jet wasn't made yet, so clearly that wasn't great, but they did go about addressing that as they took D'Angelo Ponce, who, funnily enough, his comparison by a lot of people was Aaron Glenn, who's the coach of the Jets. So, kind of funny. But in the first round, you take Kenyon Sadiq. He's a great offensive weapon just to have for you with Geno Smith as your quarterback. I would have liked to have seen you take a better quarterback. I mean, you did end up dressing that position at the 4th, but you took Cade Klubnik, who I don't think has a high potential for you. And I do think that you got a good tackle. In the case of Darrell Jackson, got a good defensive tackle. Beefing up the trenches, right? Don't mind it one bit. You draft 2 pass rushers / defensive linemen, the top 105 picks. You take a couple of good offensive skill players in the case of Kenyon Sadiq and then Omar Cooper. With 3 first-round picks, I feel like you could utilize that a little bit better, especially one of them being number 2. But I do think you got a ton of depth, and I mean, I feel like there is a lot of mixed feelings with this because a couple of the, I mean, again, that David Bailey pick just isn't great, but I don't mind it a massive amount, so I'm going to say a B because outside of Bailey, I think this is a great class. You got good rotational players. You also got good just core starters. Up next, the Philadelphia Eagles. First off, I just want to say thank you, AJ Brown. It's been a good run here. I think you will get traded, unfortunately. I would have liked to have seen you come back, but just seems to be the case with Eagles taking Mekhi Lemon at 20. Love this pick. I thought he could go as early as the top 10, and he ends up falling at 20. Love this pick. Absolutely love it. Big play threat. Works very well with Devontae Smith, letting Devontae Smith do his over the middle. Fun, although they don't throw it over the middle. That's an issue. But I think that frees up space for a couple of other receivers as well as your tight end group, which you just brought in Eli Stowers. Loved that pick. I thought he could be a first-round pick. Ends up getting him in the second. Love it. Love this pick, and then you go and you trade um, for the Minnesota edge rusher Jonathan Grenard, who he had 15 sacks a couple years ago, didn't play great last year. Little concerning, but I do think if there's anyone who can get the most out of him, it's Vic Fangio. So I love this class for Philly. Think it was fantastic. I mean, you do get in the seventh round, you get Uar Bernard, someone who has literally never played a down of organized football. But when it comes to just being a physically imposing guy, he's fantastic. I love what Clint Hurt could do for him. I love this draft. I think you got good players. I'm going to give it an A, where you're going to also get more assets probably if you do end up trading A.J. Brown. So you factor that into play as well, because you replaced A.J. Brown with a player who you won't have to worry about, like, taking time to develop. He's already ready. You end up taking another pass-catching threat to ease the loss of him. You get a good tackle in the third. You do get an interior lineman in the sixth. And you get a couple of raw pass rushing prospects in the seventh. Love this draft for Philly. Think they approached it very well, and it worked out very well for them. Sticking in Pennsylvania, you have the Steelers. You take, I still don't know how to say his name, Max Ihana Anchor, I think, close enough. Offensive tackle, Arizona State. He was a good player. I liked him coming out. He was a big, a lot of Patriots fans wanted him because it looked like with all of the one-on-one work he did with Mike Vrabel that could be the pick, but you poach him. You're then going to have a couple of great picks, I think, in the case of Jeremy Bernard, great receiver from Bama, Drew Aller, which, I mean, I like it if you don't bring back Aaron Rodgers, which I'm not going to go there. Dalen Everett in the third, great corner. Gennings Dunker, lineman from Iowa, already said, Iowa lineman. They're pretty much always good. Love this draft for you. You just kind of address all positions. I love this draft for you. I'm going to give it an A because I think you address your big needs and you bring in a quarterback in Drew Aller, which he has potential. And if there's someone who can develop quarterbacks, Mike McCarthy is pretty darn good at it. Don't mind this. I like the draft for them. I'd give them a A. Moving over to the West Coast, you have the San Francisco 49ers, which they have a whole lot going on there. Where is Brandon Ayuk going to play? Is he not going to? Who knows? Going to have a first-round pick. And you end up taking Nuzon Stribling, receiver from Ole Miss. I'd say a C for him. He wasn't phenomenal. He was good. Just don't think he's first pick of the second round good. You followed up and take Romello Height, edge rusher from Texas Tech. Great player, always able to put pressure on the ball. Like that. Kalen Black, running back from Indiana, don't like it. I think for a team that develops running backs well, maybe he could develop. Just don't think that he was a third-round grade worthy. I think that this draft, I mean, if you're in the first 100 picks, you get only one player who I feel very comfortable about, not great. I'd give this maybe a C, where, I mean, towards the end of the draft, you've started to get more rotational players, but if you're banking on the latter half of the draft, don't love it. I do think that there is a lot of work to be done, and if you can develop those players into being good, prove me wrong. I mean, I'm always open and willing to prove me wrong, because that means probably it worked out for someone. I hope that I don't get proven wrong when I'm high on someone and they underperform that much, because you always want to see people be their best, most, except for a couple people, but they probably deserved it. I mean, I think this draft is C minus. I don't love it. I know you brought in Mike Evans. I know that you spent a little bit of money, but I do think that just not great. Sticking in the NFC West, you have the Seahawks. I like this draft. Jadarian Price. He is a great running back. He is a phenomenal running back. If he was on any other team, he would have been like a top 20 pick. Just so happens that he was on Notre Dame, and he was phenomenal with the ball in his hands, and you know that he's willing to be a backup or at least a rotational number 2 running back, and that works out very well for Seattle, because now you're going to start to see the escalation of Zach Charbonnet as a primary ball handler and ball carrier. Then you have Jadarian Price as a second wind. Love it. Bud Clark, they don't need any secondary help, but they got some. Julian Neal, more secondary help to help you out. The rich get richer, and I love this draft. I mean, I think you improve, you get more depth, and you replace the depth that you lost. I'd give it an A. I think that they're just right back to competing and contending. Love it. So yeah, A. Tampa Bay. When looking at this pick, I want my edge rushers to not care about looking flashy and such. And when you see Ruben Bain not even care about any of the walking down the hall, he looked mad that he fell. He looked livid. And I love that. I want my edge rushers to be irritated and mad. Only concern arm length, which, you know what? At the end of the day, he is a great football player, and you got a great football player at 15. Don't mind it one bit. Fantastic pick. And you address a big need. Second pick, Josiah Trotter, linebacker, Missouri. Great linebacker. I mean, you address the defensive end of the ball perfectly. Transition into the offense here, where you go and take Ted Hurst, receiver from Georgia State. I don't watch Georgia State ball. Seems to be a consensus, pretty good player. Don't mind it. Then you take a couple of defensive rotational players. Then you go and you take some more bulkier players, or you get a tight end and an interior lineman. I love this draft for Tampa Bay. I'm going to give them an A. Loved it, love it, love it for them. The rich get richer, although they're not as rich as Seattle. But I do think that you address your positions of need, you build around the trenches, and can't go wrong with doing that, especially whenever you go and you get mean defensive linemen who are unhappy that they fell and have a chip on their shoulder. Not much can really go wrong when you have that happen. Next up, Tennessee Titans. They had the number four pick. They took Carnell Tate, receiver, Ohio State, best receiver in the class. Pair him with Cam Ward. Pair it with Wan'Dale Robinson, who you picked up in free agency. Love it. I mean, I think that you do need to get a little bit more lineman help, but you do end up taking one in the 5th and in the 6th. So it's like, okay, cool, but you didn't end up taking any, like, high offensive linemen, which, whatever. Don't mind too much, because you can always go and splash, and I believe they did in free agency as well. But you go and you take a receiver at number 4, the best receiver out of Ohio State, which if the worst Ohio State receiver is Marvin Harrison Jr., and he's still been a pretty good NFL player, you're good. Kendrick Falk, you got him in the 1st. Good edge rusher. A lot of people thought he could go top 10. You got a good player here. Don't mind it. And then you go in the 2nd round, you take a linebacker out of Texas, Anthony Hill. Good. I mean, I think that your first 3 picks, you got great value, you got great talent, and you pair that with a team that already spent money and a team that is going to improve. And you also factor in that when you look at the players, 2 of your 3 early picks are defensive players, and you pair that with a defensive-minded coach in Robert Saleh. Don't mind it one bit. Absolutely love this draft. I'm going to give it an A. I think you got good talent, and in the later rounds, you got good rotational depth. Last team up, Washington Commanders. Why are all of the division rivals in the NFC East just getting so much better? I love this draft for Washington. You take Sonny Styles. I love him. He's a lot more of a traditional linebacker. And you pair that with Bobby Wagner. I mean, I love this draft. He's a lot more of a Sam linebacker, at least from what I saw from him. Love it. Also, you're going to be able to develop next to Bobby Wagner, and you're going to have him as a mentor. Come on. Antonio Williams, wide receiver, Clemson. Good receiver. Get good talent there. Josh Josephs, Tennessee. Good edge rusher. Katron Allen. You needed running back help, and you got it. I don't mind it one bit. Matthew Goldman. He could be someone who he could develop very, very well. And then you get Ethan Kaliakmanis, quarterback out of Rutgers. I don't watch Rutgers football. I don't know. But consensus seems to be he's a good backup, which can't hurt. So I think I love this draft for Washington. I'm going to give them an A. NFC East, they've just been cooking, man. I love this draft for Washington. Very good NFL draft. Not as many just completely, totally surprising picks. It was very chalk, where it's what you think's going to happen probably ends up happening. I had a good time watching it. A little bit late on the upload, but we made it. We got through. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my picks. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe, as we are on the road to try to get to as many subs as we can get to. I'm not going to put an official number on that just because I don't want to be one of those guys. But make sure to go ahead and subscribe. Means a ton. Helps out the channel a ton. And why not? Not that hard. This is the Scoop with Coop. And until next time, so long, everybody.